The Ohio Supreme Court hears a key abortion case and the new reality of police body cameras. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Kathy Kandinsky, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Joe Ingles, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio, Herb Asher, OSU political scientist, and Mike Gonidakis, Republican strategist. The Ohio Supreme Court this week heard a key challenge to Ohio's restrictions on abortion clinics. At issue is a clinic in Toledo which faces closure because it does not have a patient transfer agreement with a nearby hospital. It can't because nearby hospitals are either tied to churches or the state. The state prohibits public hospitals from having transfer agreements with abortion clinics. Abortion opponents say this case is about patient safety. Abortion rights supporters say the state law and the restrictions unconstitutionally restrict access to abortion. Kathy Kandinsky, what is the Supreme Court deciding in this case?
I think there's two issues that are kind of before the court on this, and maybe a third. One is the argument from the clinic's attorneys that says this violates the single subject rule, which basically it was put into a state budget and it doesn't pertain to the state budget. That's their argument, so it should be struck down as unconstitutional. The justices also are considering whether this is an undue burden, which is a typical standard in abortion cases. We saw a lot of questions about that during arguments. And there also seems to be some concern, at least among some of the justices, about what this means for women in the Toledo area, because this is Toledo's last abortion clinic. And there were a lot of questions that came up about where would women go if this place is shut down. So I think those are some of the issues that the court's wrestling with.
Mike Gonidakis, you're with Ohio Right to Life. There were some questions, including some from Republican conservative members of the bench, Maureen O'Connor, the Chief Justice, one, that sort of brought that to light, the sort of undue burden. Where do women go if this clinic closes? Where do they go if this clinic closes?
Well, hopefully they have their children. That's what our focus is at Ohio Right to Life, is not to have an abortion, but to have your child raise it or have place it for an adoption. But at the end of the day, what the court's deciding isn't, and this isn't an abortion case. This is a case.
So why are you involved?
We're involved because it's an abortion clinic. Okay. That is why we're involved. State law is clear. If you're an abortion clinic, a laser eye surgery center, ear, nose, and throat facility, you have to have a transfer agreement. It doesn't matter what procedure you perform in your clinic, you have to have it. The abortion industry is saying, hey, we want a loophole. These rules shouldn't apply to us. And obviously, no, the answer is no to that. But most important, one fact
is it a loophole or is it an additional restriction exclusive for abortion clinics because state hospitals can take transfer agreements from LASIK eye surgery, but they cannot from abortion clinics?
One fact
if it's about patient safety only, it should be the same for everybody.
But
right?
Don't forget those public hospitals like University of Toledo, my tax dollars pay for it. We already have a law that says our tax dollars do not have to pay for abortion. That's why we passed that. But here's a very important point to keep in mind, Mike. There is a private hospital system up in Toledo called ProMedica. They refuse to do business with the abortion clinic. They have every right to enter in a transfer agreement. They say no. You can get a variance. You don't even have to have a transfer agreement. You can get a group of doctors and they say, hey, we'll provide backup coverage. There's thousands of licensed physicians in Northwest Ohio and Toledo. None of them will step up to the plate. What does that say when the medical community rejects this abortion clinic?
Herb, what is this case about? I mean, is this just a further step in the restrictions? I mean, why can't women go to like one of these?
What you're saying nationally, until the composition of the U.S. Supreme Court changes, what you're seeing nationally in many states are more and more efforts to impose restrictions on abortion, to reduce the number of abortions. And so whether you call this public safety issue or whether you call this another way to restrict abortions, I'll call it both. And we've seen this nationally. I think the interesting thing, should the composition of the court ever change and change Roe v. Wade, then it'll get, the change would be, well, now states have the right to make the decision. And then all of a sudden, Ohio legislators will be facing a decision: do we allow any abortion under any circumstances or whatever? And I think there probably are some legislators who actually would rather deal with the current situation and try to sort of nibble at the edges and put on more restrictions than to ever have to address the issue of taking the right away totally.
Joe Ingles, these, as Kathy mentioned, these were put into the state budget. Some of these provisions were, and this transfer agreement one with a public hospital is the issue. What are state lawmakers thinking on that?
Well, the transfer agreement, just so everyone knows what that is, it basically spells out what would happen at this ambulatory care center if something went wrong. And it's kind of like a game plan kind of thing. If you're at one of these ambulatory care centers, an abortion clinic or an eye center, and something does go wrong, you can call 911 and be transported that way. This is something that came out in the hearings earlier this week, where a lot of the abortion opponents were actually saying, yeah, you could do that, but this transfer agreement is important because you can send the charts, you can have the background. Justice O'Connor was questioning that, saying, well, could you send the charts otherwise? And so there's a lot going on with this transfer agreement. But the one thing that the opponents come back to when they talk about this, they say, abortion has always been here, whether it's been legal or not. And by taking the abortion clinic out, if that were to leave Toledo, that abortion wouldn't necessarily disappear. It would just go underground again.
There are 2 other cases, right, Kathy, in the pipeline as well?
There's 2 other cases.
One in Cleveland, one in a federal case in Cincinnati.
Yes, there's Cleveland preterm has a case that's going to be heard later this month that raises this issue and some others. Although that debate is about whether they have the standing to sue because they haven't really been affected by these transfer agreements. They have a transfer agreement and are operating with one. So that's about standing in that case. Then the other interesting thing is there's a total of 4 clinics in the state that do not have transfer agreements. This Toledo clinic, there's one in Dayton, and then there's one in Columbus and one in Cincinnati. The Columbus and Cincinnati clinics are operating with waivers. So they're operating with waivers, but it raises an issue. I mean, you could see if, depending on the decision in this case, we could go from 8 clinics statewide down to 4. I mean, it's an interesting case, and I think that the justices are taking that into consideration.
Mike, what's the end goal here? I mean, right now, Roe versus Wade is the law of the land, and unless there's a change in the Supreme Court and there's an overturning of it.
Sure.
So right now, abortion is constitutionally legal in the United States.
Sadly, it is.
What is the end point on the restrictions that Ohio Right to Life will support?
Well, there was 20,000 abortions in Ohio last year, Mike. That's a tragedy. Okay, we have dropped 7 to 10% every year for the past 8 years. That's a good thing. We're at the lowest number in our state's history, but there were still 20,000 abortions. I mean, we weep over 4,000 people who die of an opioid overdose, yet 20,000 babies are being aborted every year. Our goal is to end abortion. It's not just through passing laws; it's changing hearts and minds too. On the issue of single subject,
but if it's to end abortion, that's unconstitutional as the Supreme Court stands right now.
Hey, Mike, we passed a law last year. We did a 20-week ban. That's outside of. We are violating Roe v. Wade right now, but Planned Parenthood won't sue on it because they know they're going to lose. They said, they're quoted in the paper. Jennifer Branch, their lawyer, says we're afraid to sue on that. Right now, Ohio is outside of Roe v. Wade. It is violating it because we have a 20-week ban, and Roe v. Wade says.
So your ultimate goal is to
weeks.
get this before the Supreme Court and get it overturned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Very transparent.
All right.
Yep.
Let's get to our next topic. In the recent elections, Republican candidates have had to choose whether to satisfy their hyper-partisan base on the right or the moderate middle. Now, Democrats face a similar choice thanks to Senator Bernie Sanders. He and far-left Democrats are pushing government-run health care, Medicare for all.
Today, we say the function of a rational health care system is to provide quality care to all in a cost-effective way, and not to continue a system which allows insurance companies and drug companies to make hundreds of billions of dollars in profits each year, and to make healthcare industry CEOs extremely wealthy.
Democrats running for office will now have to take a position on this. Support will please their far-left supporters, but perhaps hurt them among moderates and independents. Senator Sherrod Brown, who is on the ballot next year, says while he supports Medicare for all, the Democrat does not support Sanders' bill, but he does support allowing people to buy into Medicare at age 55. Herb Asher, I think that's colloquial called straddling the fence.
Yeah, look, first of all, Senator Sanders' proposal will not go anywhere. And why?
Yeah.
For partisan, philosophical, and economic reasons. The partisan reasons simply are, okay, who controls the Congress? The Republicans.
But he is forcing Democrats to take an issue.
That's true. But Democrats who want to appeal to the left wing of their base can do so. But in fact, Democrats are going to pivot very quickly and say, we have to actually protect and save what we currently have. And this is a non-starter. There'll be all sorts of questions about financial, how do you make it work financially? And Bernie, is very slick at saying, well, you just have to rein in the insurance companies. Look, we know in the United States that we pay more for health care with outcomes that aren't as good in many other Western European and Canadian democracies. And we probably pay about 25% of the healthcare dollar toward administration. And that probably is a little outrageous. But if you're actually going to try to do something like what Bernie Sanders is proposing and not have to have massive tax increases to in fact support that, then you've got to squeeze dollars out of the healthcare system. And the squeeze, don't blame the patients who get sick for the cost. Blame hospital systems, blame insurance companies, blame the pharmaceuticals, and there's no way you're going to be taking on all of these groups at this stage. So,
Kathy, people, especially on the far left, are going to latch on to this and say, this is what we need. We see the erosion under the Trump administration, the scaling back on Obamacare, the efforts to repeal it. Well, this would
Efforts
fix it.
to repeal Obamacare failed. The Republicans so far haven't been able to repeal Obamacare. So this debate about whether health insurance is a right is still very much in play. And I think that's what his bill kind of does, is kind of frames the issue again and brings the debate back into the forefront. We still haven't figured out what we want from healthcare. And it's like Herb said, it's not going to be what this bill from Bernie, this is ridiculous. I've seen estimates it's going to cost trillions of dollars. But there's still very much a debate about what government should do about healthcare and who's entitled to healthcare.
Joe, Bernie Sanders admits that taxes will go up, but he says that they will be offset by the reductions in health insurance costs. You don't have to pay your health insurance company anymore, you just pay taxes.
Well, we don't know that for sure. Let's be real about that. There are no numbers that actually show that. But the thing, getting back to Senator Brown, the proposal that he has allowing people 55 and over to buy into the Medicare system, that proposal can be sold as a way to strengthen Obamacare, to solve a problem that now exists with that program. And it can be sold in that way rather than, we're going towards socialized medicine. And I think that strategically, in an election like he's going to be facing next year, that is more palatable to voters than some big program that might be very costly, and it might affect people who have private insurance.
And he doesn't face a primary opponent, which also helps. Mike Gonadakis, it's still only 33% of Americans support this Medicare for All program. But the Pew survey found in June, I believe, that's up 5% just in the past 6 months, and it's up 12% in the past 3 years. So it's still a minority of Americans support Medicare for All, but support is slowly growing. Well, could it be down the road at some point?
I think if you ask a generic question of, do you think elderly or should have health care in this?
No, do Americans want Medicare for all was what the question was.
Okay, then I didn't see the study. But at the end of the day, when you explain how it's going to be paid for or how much in debt, then I'm sure those numbers are going to go back down. I think it's official. I think Bernie Sanders' 15 minutes of fame are finally over. When Chuck and Nancy aren't even paying attention to him anymore, except the extreme left of his own party, I think it's time.
There'll be a little bit of triangulation here. So on the right, you have Republicans who seem to be so harsh and oppose Obamacare and take away your health care. And on the far left, you have Bernie Sanders, who seems to say health care for everybody. And we'll wind up somewhere in the middle, which will be called the Affordable Care Act, repaired.
Repaired.
Yeah.
We shall see. The Democrats running for governor met this week for a debate 8 months before the May primary. All 4 declared candidates gathered in Martins Ferry in eastern Ohio. Connie Pillich, Joe Schiavone, Nan Whaley, and Betty Sutton all laid out their plans for Ohio, and they all blamed Republicans and John Kasich for Ohio's sluggish economic recovery and the opioid crisis. Not on stage were the 2 potential candidates, Richard Cordray and Jerry Springer. Joe Ingles, what separates the Democrats on that stage, if anything?
Not a whole lot right now. Basically, that was a nice debate. Everyone was nice, and they talked about their ideas, what they were for, and it took a while for them to even get into bashing Republicans in it. They kind of bashed some policies, but to actually get into bashing, it took a while to get there. The thing, though, that you keep coming back to is what you mentioned, that Rich Cordray and Jerry Springer are potential candidates and could jump into the race. They're not ruling themselves out. And as long as that's happening, that's kind of an elephant in the room in these debates. And it's hard to raise money for these candidates to raise money and get out there and do what they need to be doing when you have that still unsettled on the side. So I think as we see some more certainty into who's in this race, who's actually in this race, I think we'll start to see more formation of better ideas and discussion in these debates.
Herbert, Democrats paying attention to these debates? I mean, this one was it was in Martins Ferry. It's way out of the way. It really wasn't on TV.
Rank and file Democrats?
Yeah,
No.
or even the activists. So the activists paying attention.
Well, certain activists and people who are trying to make a decision about which candidate they want to sign up with, but that's a small segment of the. So this is really off the radar screen right now, and but I think I think the description isn't correct. I mean, I sort of nodded off, but I gave them credit. They knew the issues and they were positive, and then they did the obligatory criticizing Republicans or whatever, and that's actually. A debate should actually be like that. But it's hard to have a debate when you pretty much agree on all the issues. Right. So how does, let's say, an average Democrat distinguish among the four candidates? And they don't. While meanwhile, if Jerry Springer were on the stage, there'd be a very different dimension. It'd be a very Trumpian dimension. And if he behaved in a very wonderfully outrageous way, people would say, oh, what a different kind of candidate he is, even though he knows the issues very well. And Cordray, if he had been on the stage, I think probably would have been the fifth person who agreed with all, everybody else. I mean, it'd been that kind of presentational style.
Kathy, Jerry Springer would not. He's not going to. When he talks policy, he talks policy. He's not going to bring his bodyguards up on stage and throw the other candidates off or things like that.
I don't know. Maybe I mean, after watching Trump in the last election, maybe he'll decide that being outrageous. But normally, when you see Springer in Democratic circles, he's actually very articulate about the issues, and you don't see anything like you see on this show. So,
Michael Dacus, at the very least, it gives these candidates practice, debate practice and getting your message polished and things like that. But also, it starts to chip away at the whole Ohio miracle narrative that whoever runs on the GOP side is going to try to champion.
True. I think all the four Republicans are going to have their own narrative, separate and apart from Governor Kasich, who will stand on his own and will go down as one of the best governors we've ever had. But, if I was a Democrat, running for governor, I probably would have skipped the debate because there's nothing more important than raising money right now. They're so far behind the GOP field in fundraising right now that at the end of the day, cash is king. I mean, whether you're running for city council or governor of the state of Ohio or president of the United States, if you don't have the resources to get your message out, you're not going to be successful.
But the Republicans are they wanted to have a debate, but then I think Mike DeWine didn't participate. Isn't that what the case was?
Yeah, they're going to do a forum coming up with Citizens for Community Values at a church in Delaware County here next month.
I think it's interesting that the Democrats picked Martins Ferry, a very depressed part of the state, and a part of the state where a lot of folks went for Donald Trump on the promise that he was going to turn things around and kind of save the coal industry and save their jobs. So it's interesting to me that they chose that venue.
And that area did vote for Obama, I think, in 2008 and 2012, and it switched to Trump.
To Trump. It's a very interesting part of the state, so it'll be interesting to see what their pitch is to get those folks back.
Okay. Our next topic, Columbus police officers started wearing body cameras at the start of this year. The city is phasing them in, and more officers are using them. This week, the city put an officer on desk duty after a body camera captured him making what Chief Kim Jacobs called offensive comments. The incident started when police tried to arrest a man on a warrant. The suspect did not follow police commands, and it took several minutes for several officers to subdue him. The body camera caught the conversation after the man was arrested.
What are we tasing for? Why don't we just choke the life out of him?
I think they did for a while.
Good. Good.
I can't breathe.
With 10-3.
I can't breathe. Oh, stop trying to fall. I can't breathe.
Oh, stop it.
I can't breathe.
Then maybe you shouldn't have fought like an
I can't breathe.
After the comments that the police officers should have choked the life out of the suspect, Officer Joseph Bogard was taken off of patrol pending an investigation. The suspect, Timothy Davis, is charged with resisting arrest. He faces assault and other charges from a previous incident. Michael Dacus, what do you make of that tape?
You know, it's tough, Mike. None of us are police officers. I go to work in a suit and sit behind a desk all day in a computer and answer the phone. So I don't know what it's like to put my life on the line every day, not knowing if I'm going to come home and see my kids. Obviously, the comments he made were inappropriate, and he should be suspended. He's through his union rep, his steward. They said he regrets saying those things, so he acknowledged it. Luckily, they were words and not actions. And you know, these body cameras, it's a whole new world. You know, the locker room's closed. You know, these things you say, everything you say is being recorded. I'm glad I don't have a video camera in my office, and everything that I say on a daily basis is being recorded. So at the end of the day, our law enforcement are amazing men and women. They're our heroes. Every once in a while, a knucklehead will arise.
That is the key point, Herb. It's what he said, not what he did.
That's right. And keep in mind, the body camera assures us that the police who did subdue this guy did it appropriately. This was another policeman commenting off to the side. And as you know, Mike said, those were wrong comments. And I think the chief had the appropriate statement. And you know, maybe in fact these comments give us a signal about the propensity of this particular policeman to engage in bad behavior in the future. But in fact, the cameras also, in many ways, will protect the police from false charges. And it looks like they handled this situation quite right. And if in fact this other policeman did not make those comments, we wouldn't be talking about anything.
There were some complaints that the police officer used punching to get the suspect to be subdued,
Well,
but he was struggling quite a bit.
Yes, yeah. And this is not his first incident, as I recall.
Kathy, but it raises the question, should conversations between officers be subject to public scrutiny?
Well,
I mean, locker room talk.
it doesn't surprise
yeah.
any of us that this kind of conversation might have happened. They'd just been in a tussle with this guy. This guy had evidently put out the word to kill police officers. So his anger but the problem is that people want to trust their police officers to protect them. Nobody wants to see them acting like bullies on the street. And unfortunately, that's kind of the way he comes off. It's embarrassing for the department for them to have somebody talking like this kind of, you know, locker room talk or whatever you want to call it, that now because of body cameras, everybody can see. They need to know better.
It might illustrate a culture, Joe, and in that sense, body cameras are illuminating that and perhaps can correct it if it needs to be corrected.
Right, it can correct it or it can make it worse, as we saw in this case. And you know, you've got to remember that there is a segment of our society that feels like the police officers don't give them a good the proper deal, that they don't feel like they get respect. And you know, comments like this certainly don't help anything. So you know, as far as keeping the cams on, it's a good thing. I guess it shows the good and the bad, and you just got to focus and make sure you're doing the good and doing it right.
All right, our final topic. Columbus is a finalist for what could be a revolutionary transportation system, the Hyperloop. The Hyperloop One company has chosen the Pittsburgh to Columbus to Chicago route for a possible vacuum tube transportation system. The system would allow passengers and cargo to travel at very high speeds through this vacuum tube. How fast is it? It would take about a half hour to get from Columbus to Chicago. As for how much it will cost, who's going to pay for it, when it will be developed, is it safe? Details. Mike Gonadakis, are you going to ride this thing?
No, I'm not going to ride it because it's never going to be built. We'll watch it on your segment here, or we'll just go watch Star Trek and watch some of that transportation. But at the end of the day, it's this is Fantasyland, and I hope and pray that our city leaders, Andy Ginther and City Council, aren't spending one dime of their time or money trying to pitch this, because it's not going to happen. Look, in the state of California, they have 100 miles high-speed train they're trying to build. They're $3.6 billion over budget. We can't even build a pipeline in our country without the environmentalists suing us. Now we're gonna just find all this land and it's going to be hunky-dory and the environment's going to be fine if we build this Hyperloop. What are we doing?
What do you think is driving this, Kathy? What do you think is...
Well, I think in this country we're way far behind with public transportation, so I think these ideas are really good to kick around because I think it gets people thinking about what possibility. I mean, we just, like here in Columbus, I would love to have a 20-minute commute from Worthington downtown every day. I mean, that sounds awesome. So, yeah. But I agree, it's probably not ever going to happen. But we need to be talking about this stuff.
Let people think big, and then come to the realization this is not practical. But if you start thinking about it, you start asking the questions, well, what would you need in terms of technology? You know, are there versions of this on a smaller scale that might actually be doable even within, you know, look, we know pneumatic tubes are used within companies and plants to, you know.
Banks?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think it's so far off. But again, you think big, but then you be careful though about how you don't invest things, public dollars.
And Joe, real advocates say why are we spending any time talking about this when we should be looking to expand rail, to make it more efficient, make it faster?
And every time you talk about this, you open the door to talk about rail, because Columbus is, I believe, the second largest city in the nation without some sort of rail system. And our public transportation here does have some issues. That's one of the reasons it was cited by the Democratic National Committee last year for not having their convention here. We do lose money, we lose business money, because we don't have transportation that works like some other cities have. And so that's a real key issue. And every time they talk about this hyperrail or whatever it's called, every single time that brings it back to what about our public transit?
Too, if something like this would ultimately be cheaper than laying down railroad, than railroad infrastructure might be. I mean, I haven't seen the numbers on it, but I just wonder if there's cheaper ways
They say
than rail.
it's more efficient and cheaper to run anyway. So
Yeah.
let's get to our off-the-record parting shots. Mike Onondaga, you up first.
There's some crazy animal rights activists like PETA that have announced that they're going to do a 2018 ballot initiative in Ohio, and they want to put in our state constitution dog breeding standards, Mike. Dog breeding standards in our state constitution. Obviously, Ohioans will reject that. That's what the legislature's for. We rejected marijuana, and we'll do that on this one, too.
Herb.
At the national level, protesters who are upset with President Trump about DACA should refocus their efforts and put their attention to the Republican leaders in the Congress, because here's a case where the president actually said the right thing. It's for Congress to come up with a solution, and it won't have to be a comprehensive immigration solution. It'll be a more limited thing.
Joe.
I want to congratulate the Cleveland Indians on the great win last night, and hope that they go this weekend and win it all, and actually become the undisputed, undefeated, get the big, what is it, number 26? Is that it?
26.
26.
And Kathy.
Well, I would just have to say that I think the Democrats need to get their act together, and if we've got more people jumping in the governor's race, they need to do it now, not later, because they need time to raise money and gather around one candidate if they're going to have a shot at the governor's race.
3 of these Hyperloops are supposed to be in place in 5 years. It has taken at least 5 years. It's not done yet to complete the Route 23 270 interchange in Worthington, and that's a proven technology. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. We're on Facebook and Twitter, and our website, WOSU.org. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.